Hello. Oh, hi everyone. This is Super EV Master. Welcome to the 2014 Geico 500 at Talladega race review. So I'll be covering. Uh, I'll be qualifying the master qualifying the drama-filled race. Whose hopes are now gone, and what's ahead? Okay. So before. Okay. So before I get. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got distracted by something. Okay, so before I do that, I just want to put this out. I just want to put this out here. Uh, I'm not. I'm not gonna. I didn't invite anyone for this live stream, and I think it's just because. And I think it's just because it's Talladega. It's Talladega, and I have a lot to pack into this episode. But possibly in the future, if you're watching this right now, uh, I could you could possibly be able to chat with me about the race, but here's the thing. I guess if you'd be interested, through to commentate through the race with me and talk about the race in the future. I guess you can post a comment but I guess if you were to come on to a race review with me, I guess I would have like rules like uh, I I don't know. I guess what I'm basically asking for is just like like people who are is it people who are I don't know what am I trying to say? What am I trying to say here? It's just that I may only allow like certain people, or I may never allow a lot of people at all. It just kind of depends. But I guess if you want to be part of the race review, I guess if you ever want to be interested into chatting with me, I guess you could post a comment down below, and maybe we'll just see what happens here. Anyway, I gotta get a drink before I can now begin talking about the race. Okay, so fine. So the race here. So let me talk. So let me talk about before the race here. So before the race, there was quite a bit of like drama and confusion and a lot of anger in the NASCAR qualifying. So the NASCAR qualifying took place after the truck race, and all of a sudden. And all of a sudden, once the qualifying was over, I don't know, because what happened was that, and I knew this ahead of time. They were changing up the qualifying at Talladega to see if it would work. Because what happened was that because what happened was in during the Coke 400 qualifying, there was a lot of confusion and everything that just simply pissed off drivers. So apparently the Talladega chairman in NASCAR decided to change things here and have like separate groups and have like and have like rounds. I believe it's like within rounds within rounds. I believe, but then all of a sudden but then all of a sudden it wasn't working. And to me, my opinion, here's why it did not work. Tracks like Daytona and Talladega are restrictor plates, and the engines and car packages are different. They run something that's called the restrictor plate. If for those who don't know the restrictor plate is something that is built inside the car for tracks like Daytona and Talladega. That it reduces car speed. It reduces car speed a little bit, but what it also does is that it prevents cars from like pulling away from each other, which is why we see these packs. And the same goes for qualifying. Because in qualifying, because at Daytona and Talladega, you can't really pull away from someone here if you're about like 5 car lengths ahead of someone else in qualifying at Talladega. You're not going to be able to like keep that distance or pull away. The driver either in front of you or behind you, it's going to get connected. So unfortunately, simply does not work. So because of that, it involved drivers using like strange timing and everything. And at the end of the day, it caused several big names and several chasers to start outside the top 30, and unfortunately caused Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Justin Allgaier to miss the race because they're and the reason why that is because So qualifying. So the determination on who gets in, on who transfers into the race is based on our points. And Stenhouse and Allgaier would have been in over drivers like Nemechek, Mike Wallace, Terry Labonte, and some of your drivers. But what happened was that all of the like one timers start in the front, so they already had their spots. And since drivers like Gordon, Harvick, Bush, and etc. had more owner points than Stenhouse Jr. and Allgaier, they unfortunately got bumped out because and you know and not in seeing a race without Stenhouse Jr. was definitely a pain because I think he definitely had the ability to come out in front in lead laps, and I think the same for Allgaier. I think those two drivers had more potential to win than say Mike Wallace or Terry Labonte. And by the way, this race was Terry Labonte's last ever start in NASCAR. So I'll just give a quick shout out for Terry Labonte. Terry Labonte, even though when I started watching NASCAR, his course had already had run through. I think Terry Labonte is definitely a NASCAR icon for sure. So I think definitely the NASCAR nation should definitely thank Terry Labonte for everything that he's done for the sport and all the achievements that he did. So yes, so I'll just give him a shout out right here. But I think to me this qualifying thing right here, it just it went all wrong because so here's what I think. I think next year at Daytona and Talladega they should not do group qualifying again. I think what they should just do is just go back to the single car qualifying, because I don't want to see like full time drivers, you know, get DNQ'd because of like simple confusion and just simply because of like simple confusion. Yeah, so I hope that so I hope to never ever see this again. So yeah, but in the meantime, when qualifying was over, Brian Vickers started on the pole, and Brian Vickers really never became a factor throughout the whole entire race, and I believe was involved in a crash. But I'll get to crashes here in a moment. Then Johnson started second, and drivers like Johnson, Keselowski, and Jr. desperately need a win. It was pretty much like they need to get that win, as a clinching scenario because if they were to make it on points, the only way I think one or all three of those drivers will have made it in on points was to get a top five and have everyone in front of them in points finish like 30th or worse, and that was most likely not going to happen, and obviously did not happen. So obviously, all three of these drivers they desperately just like need to win, and all three of these drivers were indeed strong throughout the race. But I'll get to that in a moment. Okay. So when we look at the Geico 500 here, so the Geico 500 really did not have a lot of like lead changes as we come to see in the pack, and I think that's simply because the days of the two car tandem, are over, and the two car tandem allowed us to have pretty much always allowed us to always have constantly changes, but that wasn't really the case for this race, because we had huge huge sections of the race that were dominated by drivers like Johnson, Ryan Blaney, like quite a bit of laps like early on in the race, and same for several other drivers that I cannot seem to remember like at all for whatever reason. When we look at the finishing order, Brad Keselowski won, Matt Kenseth second. They talked about a little bit in the live press conference after the race, of how kind of ironic it was for Kenseth to like push Keselowski to win after what happened last week at Charlotte, where Kenseth basically tried to like seriously injure Keselowski, and then Cooper finished third. Glenn Castle finished fourth. Ryan Newman finished fifth after looking like Ryan Newman could possibly steal the win away. Travis Kvapil sixth, Kurt Busch seventh, Marcus Ambrose eighth, Kevin Harvick ninth, Casey Mears 10th, Joey Logano 11th, Casey Kane 12th, Austin Dillon 13th, Reed Sorensen 14th, Cole Wood 15th, Mike Waltrip 16th, Kyle Larson 17th, Danny Hamlin 18th, Daniel Patrick 19th, Brian Vickers 20th, Carl Edwards 21st, Ryan Blaney 22nd, AJ Allmendinger 23rd, 24th, Jimmy Johnson 25th, Craig Biffle 26th, Jeff Gordon 27th, Mark Truex Jr. 28th, Josh Wise. As I scroll down here, 29th, David Gilliland 30th, David Reagan 31st, Dale Earnhardt Jr. 32nd, Jared Bain 33rd, Taylor Labonte 34th, Tony Stewart 35th, Jamie McMurray 36th, Paul Menard 37th, Michael Nett 38th, Mike Wallace 39th, Eric Almirola 40th, Kyle Busch 41st, Michael McDowell 42nd, JJ Yeley, and 43rd, last place was Alex Bowman. So that's your finishing order right here. So going through the race here, so obviously, the race, so obviously, of course there wasn't really that like big one that some of us drivers had come to expect. But to me, in my opinion, and I was kind of expecting a big one, but it looks like, that, like, the big one, because it always, for whatever reason, it always just kind of seems like like nowadays the big one is only going to like take out like 10 cars instead of like 20 cars, and I do remember of how Daytona in July had like a 25 car pileup, but just kind of but for whatever reason it just kind of like seems like big ones aren't as big as they like as they like once were like 10 years ago. So yeah, so going through the race right here. So obviously, so we want the first. So we want the first. Laps. I'm trying to find it here. So we went the first 60 laps without having a caution, and our first caution was on Jamie McMurray. It was apparently some of the drivers in NASCAR have been saying that, like, Jamie McMurray had tire problems, but if you remember earlier in the race, it talked about how both Ganassi drivers were leaking oil. So I don't know if like oil had anything to do with what took down place here. But McMurray spun and actually got into the side of the eventual winner, Brad Keselowski, and then took out Mike McDowell, and then later in the race, because of the damage, Michael McDowell would bring out the caution after a hard impact with the wall, and the Joey Logano was pretty much the other major car involved, spinning through the grass, but Logano and Harvick had no worries. They could have gotten involved in crashes and they wouldn't have been fine because Logano won at Kansas and Harvick won at last week at Charlotte. So obviously they didn't really have to worry here, and throughout the first like quarter, almost like half the race, it was pretty much like the Jimmy and Dale show. Like Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt Jr. like 1-2 throughout the majority of the race. Junior's car started to struggle, Junior's car like started to struggle like about like past like halfway, and what they said was that throughout the second half of the race, Junior's car was very free. So his car wasn't so because of his car becoming like free in the second half of the race, he had major struggles getting back up to the front. But then fast forward to lap 103, and we have caution number 2 here, and I think lap 103, like caution number 2, I think that race can be considered as the big one. Even though it took out like only like 8 cars, it was the biggest crash of the day. So, I'll take it here. But I think the biggest loser, and then really the unfortunate loss here was Kyle Busch. He was starting in the back along drives like Denny Hamlin, Jeff Gordon, and Carl Edwards and a couple other chases, I believe. But what happened was that it looked like Kyle Busch he was going to be just fine, but then Austin Dillon just like rammed into the back of him, and he spun. spun, and he took a pretty decent look into inside wall. He did come back on. He did come back onto the racetrack like 40 laps down, and he would have been inside, and he would have been safe if Keselowski had not won that race. But you know, and I think a lot of people, Kyle Busch fans or not Kyle Busch fans, are definitely mad at Austin Dillon. But I think I can't. I think I unfortunately have to give Austin Dillon a pass because, because watching that race right here, there was no way Austin Dillon could have seen Kyle Busch. Because if you saw, because if you remember the onboard camera of Kyle Busch, Kyle Busch really could not have seen, and I think the same for Austin Dillon. I don't think Austin Dillon really knew that Kyle Busch was there, and I don't think Austin Dillon knew how much Kyle Busch would slow down to avoid it. So I just have to unfortunately give Austin Dillon that pass. So took out Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart, Terry Labonte, the 83 of J.J. Haley, the 23 of Alex Bowman, AJ Allmendinger, Almirola, and Brian Vickers. So those were all the cars involved, and then pretty much throughout, for a long time we had a pretty long green flag stretch, and we did get a few sets of green flag pit stops right here, but pretty much up until the caution where Kyle Larson spin coming off the pit road, it was pretty much like the Jimmy show, because Jimmy Johnson, he was able to clinch the most laps led, and it almost looked like that Johnson, and it almost kind of looked like for a second there. I'm sure some fans thought, that Johnson was almost like unbeatable, because every time a driver tried to get around him, they were just unfortunately unable to do so. So I think some fans thought Johnson would steal the win away, but then all of a sudden, fast forward to lap 176 here during the middle of a set of green flag pit stops, Kyle Larson spins, and what happened was that as they're going through turn number one, because obviously Kyle Larson is not. Because obviously Kyle Larson, he has to stay on the apron until the back straightaway, because Kyle Larson does not want to, as they call it, LePage the field. So Kyle Larson spun, but fortunately he was side by side. He was side by side with someone else off pit road, coming off pit road, who also came off pit road as well, and they were side by side entering turn one, and Kyle Busch was on the inside of whatever driver he was. I can't remember who he was. And what happened was that Kyle Busch, because technically, because at almost every single racetrack, the inside, the apron is not entirely flat, because if you saw right there, the apron at Daytona Talladega is not exactly flat, because the apron kind of has progressive banking. So the car above Kyle Larson was on slightly higher banking, and Kyle Larson was not. He was on the more flat part of the apron, and since the flat part is rarely ever used, and it's dirty, and it's just simply flat, and he's accelerating pretty fast, it just fortunately caused his car to spin here. And after the set of green flag pit stops, I'm sorry, I have to get a drink of water. Yes, and I know that my race reviews are not entirely perfect. So on lap 1A right here, we get a restart, and so Ryan Newman took the lead because before the caution came out, Ryan Newman was at, I believe Ryan Newman was, I think Ryan Newman was either on pit road, or he was somewhere, or I think Ryan Newman had already taken his green flag pit stop right here, while everyone else was still on pit road. So it helped him helped him a lot right there. So then he took lead here, and then once the race started right here, because Johnson was rarely ever in traffic up the whole entire race and was really never able to find a partner, or no one ever bothered to help him get to the front. He just kind of like struggled throughout the remainder of the race. But then because that the two Penske teammates Logano and Keselowski were able to work together to get themselves back up front, and then all of a sudden on lap 184 we have our fifth caution of the race and sport debris. Here, so then we go into green white checkered mode. Ryan Newman is still your leader at this point. So then we restart here on our first attempt of green white checkered on lap 188. And then all of a sudden on the back straightaway, Greg Biffle gets some help from David Gilliland, and then that help right there caused him to go up into Dale Earnhardt Jr. and then it basically created a four-car crash with Dale Earnhardt Jr., David Gilliland, Michael Annett, and Paul Menard. And some chasers really dodged the bullet and not getting involved in the crash, like Gordon, Hamlin, and Edwards. So those drivers really dodged the bullet, as I just said. So then all of a sudden here we have our second green white checker here, and as the caution was happening, Brad Keselowski had just taken the lead. So Brad Keselowski controls his own destiny here on the restart, and Brad Keselowski, with the help of Logano here, was able to maintain his lead. But then all of a sudden, Brad Keselowski actually lost his drafting partner, I believe, on the final lap. And then all of a sudden, Kenseth came out of nowhere here on the back straightaway to eventually push Keselowski. They basically pushed Keselowski, but Keselowski was really racing hard to keep his lead, but also block the entire field. That and watching those like final like 2 laps, it kind of reminded me of when Michael Waltrip won his most like recent race 11 years ago. It was back then, because back then it was called the 2003 EA Sports 500, and Michael Waltrip was kind of like a sitting duck, and he did have his teammate Dale Earnhardt Jr. helping him as his drafting partner, but then Dale Earnhardt Jr. And Michael Waltrip became disconnected, and then Michael Waltrip was all by himself. And then Michael Waltrip basically had to do what Brad Keselowski will eventually do 11 years later, and block the whole entire field and still keep his lead. And that's what Brad Keselowski did. And then coming to the finish line, Brad Keselowski wins the race and moves on with the help of Kenseth right here. So now let me get into eliminations right here. So Casey Kane, Kyle Busch, Johnson, and June Jr. were all eliminated. Some surprising, some not. I'm not, as a Johnson fan, I'm not shocked to see him get eliminated. But I kind of think that when it comes to Johnson, Jr., Kane, I think that they were definitely, I think that they were definitely drivers that deserve to get eliminated based off of their run in the season. But I think the one that is definitely the most angering. Fine, I'll place. I think the one that was the most because I think Kyle Busch, if that did not happen, he would. If that did not happen, he would had. I think what happened was that I think if Keselowski won and Kyle Busch did not get involved in that crash, I think instead of Kyle Busch, it would have been Matt Kenseth who would have been elimination. And I think in my opinion, I would have. I know this is controversial, but I think I would have honestly swapped Kyle Busch with Matt Kenseth because to me this year Matt Kenseth, they have been consistent, but I think when it comes to Matt Kenseth, I just cannot ever remember where Matt Kenseth finished, and and I can and when Matt Kenseth and when like Matt Kenseth is not like dominating races, I can't really ever remember what he did in the race. So if I were in charge of the world, I would have swapped Busch with Kenseth because I think Kyle Busch he was this was definitely is up until today this was definitely his best chase race. This was definitely his best like chase season like ever, and it's just kind of like frustrating, and it's just kind of like frustrating, for him to be eliminated, uh, because of something that was totally like not his like fault, you know, and totally something that he cannot control. So I think Kyle Busch's elimination, I think out of the four drivers, is definitely the most upsetting here. And I think Kyle Busch, and I think Kyle Busch, I think Kyle Busch, I think if Kyle Busch would have been safe, I think he would have been like, I think he definitely was like the biggest like danger or threat to break, you know, you know, to ruin the like Logano, Harvick, Gordon, and Keselowski like Final Four, because those four drivers are, because those like four drivers are actually in my like are actually in my like top four. So my dream top four is actually still intact. But I think but I think like definitely if there was one driver that could have like easily broken up that top four, I think it was definitely Kyle Busch. So it's just definitely like frustrating, and I think he was definitely frustrated. He wasn't interviewed. So yeah, in Casey Kane, I think he was. I don't know. Casey Kane. I don't know. It's just like to me this season for him. It's been a very like to me for Casey Kane. It's been a very mediocre season for him. So I think what Casey Kane needs to do is that. I think when it comes to next year, so I hope that like next year Casey Kane like steps up. I hope that like Casey Kane like steps up his like game, and he gives us a year like 2000, and Casey Kane could one day give us another year like 2006 or 2009. I think definitely. So that's what I hope for Casey Kane, because I think Casey Kane. I don't think Casey Kane will ever win a championship. I think Casey Kane has a chance to be much more better to be much better than the one he is as of right now. Jimmy Johnson. I don't know. So I kind of and I did talk a little bit about like last week, about Jimmy Johnson. Just kind of like I think I said something. I think I said something like the this year it seems like the 48 team just hasn't been like trying as hard. But I think 1 week later, I think the word that I should have used was unprepared, because I felt because 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 I remember I believe this was said during like I believe this was said during like the Daytona 500 like practice back in February, that apparently the 48 team had less winter testing experience than everyone else in the field. So I kind of knew that like like Jimmy Johnson was already going to be in trouble. But I kind of like felt like that like. But to me, in my opinion, the way I see it like now is that like if you don't win, if you don't win a race, if you don't win a race in the first like 10 races, you're probably not gonna like win the championship. And it took until and I believe it took until race 12 for him to like finally get a win, and then he did win Dover, and then 2 weeks later he won Michigan, which is a track that he which is like well, what I'm trying to say here, which was a track that he like never won before that win. So yeah, but I think what like Johnson needs to do is that now that Johnson is eliminated, I think what they should do is that they should take they should like take these like final like weeks, to improve on themselves. I remember I remember how like Rusty Wallace in the pre-race show said something like the 48 team has like run its course, and that could be the possibility, because when you look at like Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt Sr. after like Dale Earnhardt Sr. won his like seventh championship, he was never really ever the Dale Earnhardt Sr. was never really ever the like dominant car like all season long, anymore. He did win several races after winning his seventh championship, but he was just but he just like simply like he just like simply like never ever had like a championship car, because drivers like Jeff Gordon were coming into the mix. And I think the same for Richard Petty. So possibly the 48 team has run its course, maybe. But who knows? But who knows? I'm predicting. I'm definitely predicting them. I'm definitely predicting them to have a rebound next year. And I think because I absolutely do believe do believe that like the like 48 team can definitely win a seven championship. I think it's definitely capable. But I think what needs to happen for the 48 team is that they need to they need to like work hard in order for them to get there. And then when it comes to like Junior, I don't know. And I said this last week. Whenever when Junior is not similar to Kenseth, when Junior is not like winning races or dominating them, I just can like never ever remember like what he did during a race or where he finished, and so that's what I have to say, about that. I guess, you know, and I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. Because I think I like Dale Earnhardt Jr. I think he could definitely. I think Junior still has the potential to be a Final Four contender, and to be someone who can win a championship. I think like because I could definitely see Dale Earnhardt Jr. winning a championship. I'm not saying like Junior can't win one because I think that like he can, but I think what needs to happen for like Junior is like a vast, like is like I think what needs to happen for Junior is like I think when it comes to like Dale Earnhardt Jr. They need to be like more consistent, because in the past like 3 years they're very consistent early, but then they can't keep the consistency in the second half of the season, and that's where they seem to struggle a lot. So yeah, so that's what I have to say to Dale Earnhardt Jr. here. Anyway, so now time to look at next week, or just simply the next round. The next round consists of Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. But to me, in my opinion, these Final Four races, I would describe these Final Four races as kind of like the cool down lap for the season. Because to me, I think Martinsville can definitely has the chance to be exciting, dramatic, and very intense. But I don't think like Texas, Phoenix, or Homestead, are going to give us like Talladega like races or New Hampshire chase race, type races, or whatever, or where we see like caution after caution, and I think definitely, at these next like three tracks, because I could easily see Gordon winning at Martinsville, I could see Logano or Keselowski winning at Texas, and I could see Harvick easily winning at Phoenix, and I think at this point, since my dream Final Four is still alive, I think those will and should be the Final Four drivers after these three races, and I think because when I look at the chase, and think of like everyone else in the chase, Newman, Hamlin, Kenseth, and Edwards, I don't think those four drivers, I don't think that like those like four drivers, can like step up to the plate, and beat like Logano, Keselowski, Harvick, and Gordon. I just don't think that they can. So my prediction for the Final Four, and what should be, will be, is Logano, Keselowski, Harvick, and Gordon. That's my Final Four, and I think it will be the Final Four after Phoenix. But we'll just have to see. I think very quickly. Looking into Martinsville, my pick to win the race, I think it will definitely be Jeff Gordon, because Jeff Gordon, he's an A10 winner at Martinsville. He's been very good recently. He in the last two races, he's kind of had like in the past like Martinsville races, Jeff Gordon has kind of had like a like resurgence in dominance at Martinsville. So I think Jeff Gordon will win at Martinsville. Anyway, and I know that like this like Geico 500 like Talladega like race review was kind of like long, and I apologize for that, but it's just that there was so much to like talk about and etc. So I just want to thank everyone for watching, whether you're watching this like live or after it is like uploaded. I want to thank everyone for watching it. Make sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and bye.